So this weekend, two little boys came up to my front door, knocked on the door, and
I just pictured our conversation last week, and I instantly started laughing.
What, the cannibals?
Sorry.
You thought I ate them?
No, just you're like, not very fond of children, nor do I like giving to children.
Oh, it gets worse. I assure you. So two little boys knock on my door, and they said, lemonade. These kids were going door to door with a pitcher in hand and glasses selling lemonade. And I said, boy, delivery. Like, I cannot believe no generation has thought that the convenience of the lemonade stand coming to you is definitely worth an extra $1 per glass. And so I gleefully purchased their lemonade. And I was thinking about how terrible there's a generation of non-entrepreneurs, the non-paper route, non-lemonade stand, non-hustle kids that are just freaking lazy because of awful parenting. And I'm not all parents are awful, but here's the logic. So if you struggled, like, good intentions say that you want to not make your kid struggle how you struggle.
Yeah.
But it's what made you. It's what made you tough and capable, because that struggle and that friction builds those muscles in being an actual hustler. We have such soft, like, tissue paper kids that complain their way into getting what they want. And, you know, and anyway, so thoughts on it before I go further. But do you think our kids are stupid and lazy?
I mean, I totally get what you mean. They kind of say, you know, like, don't solve all your kids' problems for them
100%.
because that's how they learn to be problem solvers. I'm so happy you did buy lemonade because I was afraid you were going to slam the door on them.
No, I want to encourage that. They went out and they broke through the mold. Right? And they did the hard thing. They interfaced with people.
They're not mailing it in. They did it. Yeah.
I want more kids like that who know how to hustle.
Yeah, absolutely. My daughter actually was just telling me she and the neighbor kids are starting a business, as much as you can start a business when you're 10. But they enjoy baking, and they keep talking about how they're going to bake and then deliver to houses throughout the neighborhood. They're already fighting over who's going to deliver when they don't even have a product. They don't even know what they're doing yet, but they're super excited about it. So we're trying to encourage that. But definitely going that extra mile, figuring things out. You know, she said to me the other day, it's really hard owning a business. And I said, well, why do you say that? And she's like, because so-and-so said they're going to be in the business and then they quit already. And so-and-so said they were going to be like part owner, but they don't know anymore. And I said, yeah, it's hard to keep good staff. And they're learning all these things.
But you learn that early, and then you don't get into your 20s and totally clusterfuck everything up. Because you didn't do it when, you know, the market's a little bit, you know, has a little bit more grace for you to screw up when you're 9 years old, right?
Yeah.
And you got to hit the real world problems. It's a scaling thing. So the same shit that you hit when you're a kid is the same stuff that you're going to hit when you're adult, but you've seen it before.
Yeah, you know? It's familiar. Did you, just out of curiosity, did you actually drink the lemonade?
No, I did not. I did not.
I was just thinking.
Don't tell the kids, not that they would care.
Yeah, I may not have. My kids have done that too, where our neighbors had a garage sale several months ago, and all the kids made these, I guess they were cookies, if that's what you want to call them. And I watched them with their hands, and I was just like, oh no, here's your $1. Keep it. It's a donation. I'm not eating that. I know where it's been and how it was made. Well,
just remember for the next time, they need market feedback. So they need you to tell them that OSHA standards are important.
Yeah.
Regulatory and health and food and safety are part of the deal. So take the dirty cookies that have grass in them back to the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And figure out how to do it by standards that everybody has to follow. That's part of those lessons. Like, you need to goob it up where grandma will eat the grasses, but the public might not be so tolerant.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I told my daughter last night when she said that her staff, is already arguing. I said, first of all, you guys have this argument and you're not even there yet. Like, you don't even have a product. You better perfect your product before you worry about delivering this product. But yeah, it's very educational, and I'm so glad to see that they were doing that. One, that kids still have that sort of entrepreneurial drive to even have a lemonade stand still. But two, the delivery, like, yeah.
That was an
2024.
innovation that I cannot believe we didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. It's the first I've ever seen of it.
What were we thinking? We're just sitting there on a street hoping cars go by.
When we're mobile, we can walk miles.
We could put it on our bikes.
I'm telling
and go. These kids.
All right.
Surpassing.
Now on the other side, because there's a dad who got pretty condemned on social media last week.
Oh.
And his kid saved up to buy ice cream. I don't know if you've heard this story.
I don't think I saw this.
So he posted a picture on social media that had his kid sitting in a chair, looking down at the ground, sad as could be. The dude worked all week to make enough money with chores and whatnot to buy his own ice cream cone. He got 5 licks into it, and the ice cream cone tumbled onto the ground. And his dad said, "I'm not rebuying it for you.
Aww.
You got to go back." And he took a lot of hell for it because they felt like maybe he skewed a little bit, the demoralizing and, discouragement that could come from a little bit too far. Because parents are they're just blind to this. Either you want to give enough friction that their lesson can be learned without pummeling your 10-year-old in the face with a 2x4.
Yeah.
There's a middle line.
Would you have bought him more ice cream?
Probably not.
Probably not?
Probably not.
Oh, I probably would have.
But mine would have been connected with more lessons to be learned so that freebies don't exist with me, right?
Yeah.
And so that there would just be another lesson. Oh, you want a refill here? Let's see if we can challenge you in this department. They wouldn't have to go back and reinvest an entire week. It would be an easier thing. But I think the entitlement of that generation is what, if anything encourages entitlement, I think you should kill it, because I think that's what parents do the most, is that somehow it's someone else's responsibility to provide stuff for you.
Yeah.
And they're just getting used to it, that if they scream the loudest or complain the most, that they get delivered something. And I want to do the opposite. Like, you behave badly, and I want that to be painful. So smart hustlers should be rewarded, and paper-thin complainers should be devastatingly punished.
And I maybe this makes me mean, but I'm one of those parents that I do not give an allowance. A lot of people I know, and I see their point. They'll pay their kid for, like, clean your room, do the dishes, blah, 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 around the house. Now, if my kid is doing something additional, maybe. But I'm not paying you to learn basic life skills. Like, you should make your bed. You should keep your house clean. You should tidy up and put your things away or do your laundry or whatever. So I'm not going to pay them to do things that is a responsibility of your daily life as an adult. Do you give your kid an allowance?
No, I'm with you on that the contributor type of things, that's built into the cake. In order to eat here and sleep here, those things are part of the responsibilities of being part of the household. But I will float, about every week, I will float an extra thing, and I'm cool with a yes or no. Like, what I dish out there, you can say yes, I want some extra money, or you can absolutely say no and pass on this one. And I would say my kid's about 50-50. 50% of the time, he'll take up the offer and do the thing because he wants extra money. And 50% of the time, he's like, I don't really need anything right now. I'm going to pass on this.
I did. I watched something interesting the other day. I had to run to the store real quick with my kids just to get, like, I don't know, laundry detergent or something. While we were there, my daughter saw this Lego set, and they've been super into Legos lately. And she's like, I want this, yada, yada, yada. Well, she had just done some work for a couple of people that paid her. She does little odd jobs for family or neighbors and gets $10 here, $10 there. And I said, well, how much money do you have? Do you have enough money at home? And she's like, yeah, I think I do. And I said, well, if you've got the money for it, I can get it. You pay me back. And I watched her step back then and say, I don't know. Do I really want this then? And she second guessed it. She's like, is my money really worth this Lego set? And then after we finished getting our things, she went back to it and she's like, I really want it. I will pay for it. And I said, all right. And so we went home, and I was actually holding on to some of her money that somebody gave me to hold for her. It was hers. And I said, so I have your $10 here. You want me to just hold on to it for that Lego set. She says, yeah, and I owe you another 10. I'll give it to you. And I said, we'll split it. Just give me 10. And part of me is like, was that a good thing or a bad thing?
Okay, so it depends on the kid. If the kid knows you're going to do that, it kind of builds it into the theme, then it's ruined. Then you're really discouraged.
Yeah.
But what I do, my kid's so smart in that area that I'll take, if I'm going to like put my 10 in, I have to do it so he doesn't remember that 10 was connected to that thing, because I doesn't want to know like Dad's just gonna do that thing, so I'm gonna like sneak in there. So I'll put 10 in a different department, only to be discovered like months later where there's a disconnection between he's gonna feel like he paid for that thing, because it's almost like that's the trophy. I went out and did that. Like as a kid, I bought everything. Like everything that I had, every stitch of clothes that I had, every place that I wanted to go. My parents were just like checked out of the funding what I wanted to do thing. So I had to go sell newspapers and sell balloons and I sold everything. Like there wasn't a business that I didn't
You're a
try.
salesman.
Absolutely. So what about you? Were you I picture you as a daddy's girl that if you wanted something.
No, not really. No,
Right.
I would say I had to work for it usually. I mean, I don't know if I did as a kid. I can remember being a kid and we attempted like a snow cone stand or something. We lived on a street though that was like, there was no stopping. It was busy. It was not a neighborhood. It was so futile to do anything like that. But I mean, like, yeah, when I was 16, got a job right away and
Nice.
worked ever since. And
Okay, my respect level have gone up 50
actually,
times on that.
it was pretty rare from the time I was able to work till the time I was maybe like almost middle-aged. It was rare to have one job. I typically had two or multiple at a time.
Oh, you're a hustler then. So where did it come with you? Where did you pull that work ethic?
I mean, I think my parents instilled that.
Were they tough on you?
A little bit. It was sort of like you want something, you're going to help pay for it.
Love it.
Yeah. We, the only reason we even got a cell phone is because we started driving and my mom needed to get in touch with us. So my parents said, all right, you're going to be driving, you're going to be on the road. I need to reach you. You can have a cell phone if you pay part of it. You can drive this car if you pay part of the gas. So even though I was too young to like do it all myself, I had to put something in towards it.
All right, next topic. You ready?
Yeah.
That was good. I like that one.
Okay, good.
All right, so there's a school in Tennessee that, again, being criticized because we're all soft, squishy people. I freaking hate just how soft.
We're so soft and squishy.
I hate that. So there's a school in Tennessee that's not academically doing very well.
Okay.
And so what they've done is they have canceled field trips until the school and the kids and the teachers buckle down and get the academics right. There will be no fun until they figure out how to do what the primary goal of education is to do well with the curriculum.
Okay.
So give me your thoughts before I go further.
I guess it would sort of depend on where exactly they're failing, but the no field trip is concerning because aren't field trips supposed to be educational?
Oh, come on.
And apply what you're
Come on.
learning?
It is such a farce, right? It is such a farce.
Depending on what it is.
So we went. My kid's school did a trip to Cedar Point, right?
Okay, well that's not
And
educational.
they rolled roller coasters, right? And some of the groups, the older groups, was about engineering and physics, right?
Yeah.
And so they walk them into this room at 12 o'clock. They have to walk into this room, and they do this little PowerPoint thing where it teaches them about the park, like operations and business management and labor and sourcing and whatever. Literally 30 minutes had some kind of school tie-in, education tie-in. The rest of it was just them having fun at the park. So if you don't as a kid, if you went to a trip and it was 99% educational, would that have ruined the trip for you?
It'd probably be a snooze fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what it should be. If you're going to expense going to a place, it's either a reward where you're either going there to have fun because you worked your ass off for the academics part, or they wrap it in some kind of education where that's just your classroom assignment for the day. But it seems like if you're doing terrible on the academics, there's no reward for you. So
Yeah.
I'm shit can those trips and get into the books.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, I think it kind of depends on what the field trip is, because there are certainly field trips that tied into what you were learning. They help those kids that are sort of visual learners, or, they can apply something and it helps people to understand different concepts. But 100%, there are those field trips that are like, it's end of the year. We don't have a lot of work to do. This is clearly like, let's go have some fun. Oh, and maybe on some loose level, it will tie into what we're learning. But
So do you think school is too long and too many days and too many months? Do you think there's too much education or not enough?
I've never minded what it was. I don't know if I would say there's too much. I guess it kind of depends on the grade. It kind of depends on what they're doing. I have seen instances where it seems like kids will get just a ton of homework and a ton of things due at one time. And even though I'm not the one doing it, a lot of it I feel like falls on the parents. And that's when I'm like, time out. I got a job. I'm not doing this stuff. Like, you've now given me a second job trying to help with all this schoolwork. I don't know if I've ever really seen, though, that it needs to be one or the other.
Well, you just said that it gets to the end of the year and then you start having fun.
Yeah.
So why don't you just chop off the period of time where you start mailing it in and just go have fun on your own dime, so it's not
True.
part of the deal. So if it's 1 month too long, end it up in May instead of June, and then go to academics to the very last minute, because taxpayers were paying for academics, not for mailing it in.
Well, I also see school. I mean, yes, of course, academics is important and you're there to learn. And I could definitely see your point. I also, though, believe that school is also a place to learn social skills.
But they don't teach that. That's not part of the curriculum. If they was the curriculum, it's part of that, but you're discovering that of your own. Like, it's almost like if you went to college and they just let you walk around and discover things on your own. That's not education.
But I mean,
you take people who are good at socialization and show you how socialization is. And I agree that we absolutely need that, but you're not getting it, right? It's not part of the ticket.
I don't know. I think they are a little bit. I mean, I think they do different events.
Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to roam around the social behaviors of preteens and those in the high school and see if there's a healthy, non-toxic, totally educational, and great version of socialization. Go. I don't think so.
I'll point out an example.
Okay.
My kids, when I was in school, I feel like we were separated from the students that had some sort of disability or learning disability. There were kids that had a separate classroom, and then there was everybody else. What I've seen now with my kids in their school and nowadays is they mix them together. They are still separated a little bit. Kids that maybe need a little extra help or something still have that. But they socialize together. They are in groups together. They are in extracurriculars together sometimes. And I have really seen kids come out of this with better understanding, better, I don't even know what you call it. Not acceptance, but they're more inclusive, maybe, is what I'm thinking. It's not just with their friends and with each other, but it's also working with those who are a little different from you and including them and learning how to work with them and vice versa. And so I do very much see a social aspect to being in public school when you're not just learning from a book, but you are interacting with each other. I think that will be helpful later.
And I agree with you, but I think it's happening outside of the curriculum. I don't think we are teaching how to socially interact. And I think if it's happening completely by accident. And I don't think that's the norm. I think, like when a family wants to homeschool, you're missing out on the socialization. And then you participating in the socialization. You're like, this is garbage. Like terrible parents, terrible kids, treating everybody terribly. And I'm going to mix in with that. And that's the fabric, though. I send my kid to school with like a rule set of principles on how to deal with other people. I am the minority.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was just going to say, not everybody has that home life.
Right.
Some people, the only reason they're not a total asshat is because they have social situations in another environment that the majority of their day is spent in. And then they come home to other asshats. And God forbid that is their only lesson on socializing or how to treat people or how to interact with people. And so you almost sort of need that school, even though they're not purposely working it into the curriculum to make it a point to teach them these things, but it sort of just happens.
Well, kids like ours would be fine anyway. So the socialization part, they would get regardless of what the school tried to do. But if it was part of the curriculum, you make a really dumb kid who's bad at math, you teach him how to not be bad at math. You teach an asshat kid who has absolutely no principle training of how to interact with other people, and the school's not ushering that kid around. What they do is they mitigate its effect of the toxicity and the bullying and whatever that goes along with that. Schools aren't geared to be able to help socialization, so I don't think it should be an important part of what you would say the curriculum would be. I think, like I said, happy accidents, we'd be fine anyway. And you know, as your kid is going there and being the influencer, well, they're a paid, teacher there. Like my kid deserves something out of that because they're actually adding a positive value to the overall, socialization score.
So how do you feel about things like recess? Should they have recess, or would you say shorten the school day, knock out all your work, and be done?
Well, it depends, because I think boys are different than girls. And so like what boys need, like I would never been able to sit through an 8-hour day without having some, release of energies and whatever. I think a girl can sit in a classroom and absorb sponge things all day long because their brains are in tune with learning. Right?
You don't think the girl would need that break or to
maybe, but I'm saying
or...
I think they can survive it a lot easier than a boy. You put a boy in that situation and they'd explode. Like they would be completely destructive. So I think our education system is so blind and dumb to what kids need and what they should actually be pushing out into these. I mean, you got these brains that are super absorbent. And they do the worst possible method for getting knowledge into those brains. They fail way more kids than they help.
So how do you look at it as far as a school and a school day preparing them for the real world? School day, you are there from this time to this time. That, like, you've got to fill that time, even if there's a substitute who's not doing anything that day, even if there's recess and lunch where you're not really learning anything, you're still just there. Do you think that sort of prepares them then for that sort of work day where you're there regardless and you've got to follow a schedule and you've got to follow, a routine or an agenda that's given to them that they cannot control?
Well, it's not everybody. So think about the kids that doesn't work for and fitting into that, 9 to 5 type of deal and being dealt whatever your commands are for that day. Like what is the purpose of education? Is it to get kids curious about new knowledge so that they spend their lives collecting knowledge? Or is it conformity where you get them in that box and you're going to stay in that box forever? Like we got to agree on that, because education for today's, like, we're not sending people off to a factory work, right? Where they just have to listen to instructions and go. These are where the innovators should be hatched and the people are experimenting and finding new technologies and whatever. Like school was a waste for me. Like I probably got a year's worth of actual value out of it and 11 years. If you would have given me the ability at 10 years old to bail out and start being curious into things that actually interested me, I would be way more ahead than when I was. And there's some people who needed that structure and needed that regiment in order to learn, but that was not me for sure. But everybody's pushed into that stupid box.
So what would you suggest then if you've got the people that don't thrive in that box and the people who do?
There should be different schools for different learning styles. There should be different things. So for instance, my kid went to Montessori. And so Montessori is student guided. like they get to go down the channels that they're most interested in and go as far along as they care about. So it's not like they have to follow the tempo of everybody in the room. And if they're bored as hell on fractions because Tommy over there is too dumb to get what fractions are, they got to serve the consequences of waiting the pace of Tommy to get caught up to where they're at. And by the time you get caught up, he's bought out. Like your kid is like, I forgot about this a long time ago. But if I like fractions and I want to jump into algebra and then I want to get into calculus and I want to get into trigonometry, I don't care if I'm 10 years old, I can go as far down that pathway as I possibly can. So if I want to go physics, I'm going physics, and they will keep putting things ahead of you in the interest by design and customized for that group.
So in this example, then, where does Tommy fall?
Tommy goes to the school where people who don't really want to learn much, they have to serve the standards and they have to get to the bare minimum. But you don't mix Tommy up with people who are engaged and ready to go in a certain direction, because now if you got it, Tommy's dumb and doesn't want to learn.
That's
right?
so mean for maybe Tommy's not dumb. Maybe Tommy just needs a little
Tommy
extra
just
help.
needs to be around people that are also dumb and don't want to learn.
Poor Tommy.
And Tommy might decide at his 11th birthday that he doesn't want to be dumb anymore. But you can't let Tommy erode the education from the person who's like gung-ho and ready to get that knowledge.
Listen, this reminds me too of even like situations in college where you are required to do group work and your entire group gets one grade that you share, whether you bust your ass and you do everything or whether you don't even show and you hardly lift a finger. You now have to compensate for what they were supposed to do. You're all getting the same grade.
Right.
And I feel like as much as that sucks, you can apply that to so many things in your adult life. Like someone's not going to pull their weight. Someone's going to end up having to do more. So where do you learn that? To handle that?
Well, I think it's a reflection of if we're a meritocracy, it means that stupid people win or stupid people lose and smart people win. But we're not that, right? There should be a merit. There's a connection between success and knowledge and skill and whatever. And you don't let these people like diffuse down the benefits of success and get something that's ill-deserved. So if you're in that project and then you work 18 hours on it and Tommy sits there and says, Kelin's got this, right? Tom's dumb as poor Tommy. Like
he's not dumb. He just needs help.
He's dumb as a brick. He doesn't want to participate.
In this example, he is a slacker.
And you do 18 hours of the work, but when you turn that paper, everybody gets an A.
Yeah.
And then you deserved it. And Tommy, he coasted, and all he learned about it is that doesn't really have to do anything. He just has to find a Kelin to parasite off of. And if that's the lesson where we're not a meritocracy, we got to have, the equal amount of failures to line up with the balance of successes, or else successful, intelligent, hustlers are devalued because of the Tommies out there who are just bricks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because it happens. I mean, I've had jobs when I was younger. Same thing happened. The people who were willing to work hard and pitch in and do a little extra did, so that others didn't. I've had jobs where it's late at night and I'm closing down and I see coworkers leaving. And I was like, hey, Kelin, why are you still here? Oh, I don't know, because this still needs done and I'm trying to close this down. Oh, all right, well, have fun with that. We'll see ya.
Yeah, and so society will mirror whatever we put our priorities. If we feel bad enough for Tommy to if we think really that let Tommy pollute a group, right, then that's going to happen in the real world. There's going to be Tommies polluted in every group that are trying to get something done, and Tommy the anchor is ruining it for everybody. Versus make the acknowledgement that Tommy's just not ready to start trying yet. Put Tommy in the group where maybe he needs some frictions to get his energy up and willing to try. Let it be not a great experience to be Tommy. Make it be a little awful.
Yeah.
And then Tommy starts to say, hey, I hate this awful. And then Kelin's like, all you got to do is try and develop a little bit of, ambition.
Yeah.
And then Tommy goes out there and says, oh, I knew all along here. I should have just been more like Kelin and go learn with Kelin. You want to mentor the Tommies of the world? Tommy has to be ready to try first.
I was going to say, what about in an instance that Tommy is not just a slacker, but needs help? Could the other
absolutely
come back?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where your socialization, where you start mixing people. If Tommy was just a person that didn't care and didn't try, well, then Tommy just needs to go in the corner. But if Tommy was really trying and just needed to absorb that knowledge, that education, I'm telling you, I read this book when I was 19 years old, and I was looking into the sort of like the origins of education. And education means to draw out, right? Mm-hmm. So everything about education is not to like pummel you and go against your will, right? Yeah. It's to draw something out of you. So drawing curiosity. Maybe Tommy hasn't been challenged, that hasn't been asked the right question, have been paired with the person that is perfect for them. It is the requirement and responsibility to have teachers who aren't also as equally apathetic as Tommy, that their job is to draw out some kind of curiosity from kids so they can do the rest of their job, which is to fill in that information.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you think like professional counselors. Rarely does someone go into counseling and get told everything they need to do. Oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. Counselors typically are just listening and asking open-ended questions.
Yep.
And you start to piece it together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we got the math all wrong. So, and this is what drives me crazy about academics and college institutions. Like, they have people that study the human mind. They have sociology. They have people that study, civilizations and how people interact. And this is like their Super Bowl. You have everybody bouncing off walls when we have every advantage in our society that we could all be rock stars and millionaires. But yet these people are studying the absolute worst portions of sort of human psychology. When it's like, how do we solve a Tommy that's not ambition, right? What do they do? They, for some reason, the education system is so mind numb, right? That they're like, how do we figure this out? We've got some people over here that show up and mail it in and don't try. Let's do this. Let's average everybody down and completely take someone who's ready to light the world on fire and see if we could frustrate them into giving up on education, slowing them down to the point that they think that the parents and adults are totally stupid. So the minute that they can escape all of the information that adults could give them, right, you've totally ruined that honeymoon and sweet spot for them. Man, I'm pissed off about this.
I can see you're a little passionate about this.
Oh, this drives me nuts. We're so much smarter than how we do things right now. So much smarter.
So why do you think it kind of goes back to that other way of doing it then? Do you think that the people working in the education system maybe become too maybe beaten down themselves, or they have to deal with so much? Like I've never been a teacher, but I've always heard the hardest part about teaching is handling the parents and, their 2 cents, or whether or not they're willing to help with the education process or not. Do you even think it's the parents' job more so than the school's job to help with some sort of education process?
If we sorted people correctly, it wouldn't matter if you have brain dead, deadbeat parents on it. You'd keep those people separated from the rest of the people who want to learn. Like if you had a law school and someone decided that they didn't want to learn law that day, they would just wash out of the system. It's for high achievers and it's for people who actually want to be there. It's already hard to get in there. Mm-hmm. You have to work hard to get there. So what would happen if you did the law school thing? We're like, is it your parents that didn't want to teach you? No, you just don't have that opportunity. Go do something else. And then being in the bowels of lack of opportunity will be the motivation to maybe care a little bit. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But, I thought your question was going what's the solution here? What's the root cause of the problem? And we think sometimes that there's some ultimate engineer, some brain behind that's pulling those strings. I think it's the opposite. How too many cooks in the kitchen, they have too many people who wants to rule. I think we're all looking up thinking that there's some great engineer who's moving all the strings, and there really isn't any, right? Nobody's taking that spot and saying, you're all stupid, you're all doing it wrong, here's the math behind it, here's what we need to do. You're not going to like anything that I'm going to say, but here's what actually solves your problem. Because I wouldn't have served that position, would you? I mean, would you be responsible the hard truth so that there are smart people and there are dumb people out there and we should serve them in the way that they need to be served? Little Johnny might not be the most brilliant, but there should be a place for Johnny to be as good as he absolutely can be. Yeah. Instead of lying to Johnny and putting him into the faux academics as if he's going to get anything out of it.
Maybe he can improve. Little Johnny.
Right, but
Improve.
the sciences of education should cater to the actual reality of what that person's capable of doing. Not lie to that kid and make him feel good and give him trophies about, no merit and what's the sense that he's going to get, that somehow he's going to go out in the world and not be a devastation upon anybody he comes in contact with.
Devastation.
Yeah. But there are educators that could be in every strata of, intellect and capability, and catering to those people is where the sciences should put us. And we're just not doing that. It's more about feelings and emotion instead of the realities of things we can measure.
So what would you do? If you were put in that position, Joe, fix this.
I wouldn't group everybody together. I would separate people out and put a skill set on every group. And I don't know how I'd divide it, but I would definitely have somebody who does this for a living, who's seen a sampling of thousands of kids, and be able to take student profiles and say, all right, here's this person, and they got nothing out of this experience and a lot out of this experience. So I'm going to put all of those people together and get the best part of their experiences. So the people who are paying the taxes get the best value on whoever that profile is. Here's this group that really want to do this, wouldn't fit in that group. Let's put them in this group.
So you would sort of almost develop this profile at a young age.
Yeah.
Through testing, through observation.
Through observation. I think the people that do it for a living could tell you, if you sat them down and said, out of the 30 kids that you have in this room, here's 4 boxes, and I want you to take 4 boxes, and I want you to put the different skill sets, the different methods of learning, the different level of intellect and curiosity, put them in their own boxes and just let them sort it out. They've got the experience. They see thousands of it. Like, I've not seen a single kid, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know the hyperactive ones that want to pay zero attention to the written word versus the people who would listen to audiobooks all day, or the visual ones that want to look at what's happening on a screen. And that would be like my natural sorting mechanism. Like, were you book smart, like reading, writing things?
I was more probably reading, writing, other than math, science. I don't know what the difference is as far as what your brain goes, but yeah, if it was something that was more of like a story or something of that nature over a math problem, oh man, math, like not even close. Like, can't do it. Never could. I'll do almost anything else.
So if there were 4 profiles in a room, and Tommy over here, Tommy's like my go-to.
Poor Tommy.
Tommy over here, he watches things. He takes things in for visual information. He connects storylines, and it could be extremely sophisticated. It could be well, put together verse, but Tommy really struggles with the written word. He doesn't have the imagination to put the same information. You could script it in words. You could put it on a screen. He looks at the screen and he gets it. He reads it in a book and he does not get it. Versus this person over there doesn't really get plots and storylines, sophisticated, weaving those things together. But you give it a book and their imagination can bring the storylines to life. Should both people be forced to suffer, right, through learning the same way? Or would it be more likely that give this person the book because that's what their skill set is maneuvered around, and put this one in front of the screen who somebody's going to concoct a storyline where they can both learn the same thing?
I definitely agree with that. How do you then prepare them for, all right, let's nurture the true way that they learn best, but also prepare them to be in a situation in the future as an adult that will not cater to how they learn best?
Yeah, that's a great question, because here's how we solve sort of the problems of our void and our blind spot, is that we use our sort of like our strong suits to buy our way out of our vulnerabilities, right? Mm-hmm. But you have to have a strong suit. If we have this equity thing where we don't ever develop a strong suit, we don't really have anything to buy us out of that. So I have my vulnerabilities, and my strong suits engineer ways out of the things that I'm lacking in, right? Uh-huh. And then what you're talking about, like cooperatives between different kids. Well, socialization should be about finding people who are good in the things that you're not, and learn how to work together where you're trading information with someone who can fill in gaps that you can't put together. Now it's real socialization, where if in a workplace and in a marriage and all of the things where socialization matter, it's filling in a jigsaw puzzle of not people who are alike, but different people learning to work together, where, in our group, if Tommy, who is the brain dead skater, right? Maybe he can't put the project together, but there's one element that he's super good at. So what we do is we assign Tommy to do all the things in his wheelhouse, and in exchange, we don't have to do the stuff that Tommy's real good at. And then the other people, maybe you're good at everything, right? So you've got all the departments down. So giving one up lets Tommy be involved with you, and then Tommy can support you in a way where you don't look at Tommy and say, you know, parasite, like you took and didn't give anything back. That's what socialization should be about.
I mean, it sounds great ideally. It's just not.
Well, you're in the midst of that storyline, right? It's hard to picture where we, you know, like, I don't know if you were in school where you had the kids that were really academically deficient, and when they moved them out to give them special attention, how were the other kids? How did they treat them? How did they feel about them? And no parent wants your kid to be grouped in with the LD or, you know, the whatever from social issues. They'd be condemned because we don't live in a meritocracy. Meritocracy, you would always have dividing lines. So if I was really good at logic and you were really good at emotion, I wasn't really better at you. You were just good at different things. The merits of what we did were you're good at math and you're good at sciences and you're good at structure and you're good at, you know, these things. Like those things coupled together didn't mean that one academic type dominated all the other academic types. And that's what we are right now. Like it's like GPA is all. And if you suck at it, then you're learning deficient and you know you're thrown in the dredges because you're in the middle of a bad plan with how we do academics, how we gauge academics, and how it's instituted. Like it's a bad package and we all got to buy it.
I can remember ever since maybe kindergarten, my daughter's teachers have been like, hey, I think I would like her to be tested for gifted. I think she's gifted. And we're like, cool, okay. And down south where we used to live, there was a whole separate school. They would leave their regular school in the afternoon and they would go to a different school that was like for the gifted. But you have to test into it. You have to get a certain score. So kindergarten, first teacher's like, I want her to test this. Okay, no problem. She tested it, didn't make it. All right, no problem. Very next year, teacher, oh my gosh, have you ever tested her for Yeah, we tried that. Well, do it again. I'm telling you, she's gifted. Does it again. Sorry, didn't get in. And they're like, you're kidding me. And this year, we move here. We move totally out of state. We have a whole new set of teachers and a whole new school system. What do? They move her from her first class and they put her in a gifted reading class. And this whole time I'm like, well, then what has been happening all these years that for some reason these teachers are witnessing something, but a test is saying something different? Ideally, like you said, let's watch the kids, let's profile them, let's figure out what works best for each. But again, I keep going back to this. How do you then get them? Like you said, somebody's good at this, somebody is good at this. How do you get them to work together and to learn how to assign who's good at what if they're not learning together, if they're not in the same class all the time, if they're on different tracks? You know what I mean?
And that's why I said this is their Super Bowl. If academics were worth anything, this is the kind of things that if you're profiling. Okay, so let me use a medical example for you. Let's just say you have two different personality types when you think medical. Human physiology and biology, people who understand how the brain works and the body works and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. And they're innovative in the way that they figure out how those different elements work in conjunction with one. So they're the imaginative side of biology. And then you sort of have the practitioner of medical, sort of like a doctor, a physician, a nurse, and whatever. And those good people are good at testing out, taking tests, going through accreditations, and getting into the medical field. Well, this guy over here can actually solve problems of biology, but could never get into a medical program because they can't test. How many cancers could have been cured, but since this guy can't actually get into the vein that delivers them in a place where they can actually do research and be part of that deal, they're always kept out of it. So doctors are good at treating patients, but not coming out with those things. And again, this is a complete analogy.
Yeah.
Right? But what if an academic found that somehow the exact profile for the imaginative faculties to be able to cure diseases is somehow not making it into the vein where they can actually be in a position to actually do those things? So how do we get them to be included? Well, they can't pass tests. Well, let's figure out metrics and tests to somehow get them into it without just giving them a pass that breaks down the qualifying procedures that get you in there, because you want people of high intellect to be able to get into medical when lives are at risk, right? So you don't want somebody who doesn't want to put in the time to get into medical, but you also want their imaginative faculties to be able to get introduced there, or else those innovations will never happen. So that's the quandary where people in academia are failing because they're excluding the people who can solve those problems. And the people who are getting there are doing an okay job, but it's mediocre at best.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like when you're running a business, you have a product you want to sell. You've got someone that can design it, can make it, can create it, but can't sell it for whatever reason. Then you've got someone who's the salesperson, who's the people person. They're like, I don't know anything about making that. I can't do it. I don't know those formulas. But I could sell it for you. I could put it in front of people for you.
Yeah, and what would happen if there was an academic track that you had to first go to sales and then you can get to the exploratory and experimentation part? Well, all the people
that created this, but you can't talk to this person first.
So you fail at the first gateway of I can't become a salesperson. You're like, hey, how come these salespeople aren't solving any problems or putting any products together? That's what academia is like.
I see. Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah, you're trying to take everybody who's doing different jobs within an organization and make them switch.
Yeah.
You're now going to make this and you're going to sell it. What?
But think like the logic for 12 years of your academic life are exactly the same for every human being that comes through there. But if there was 5 gateways that started parsing people out from the very get-go, and maybe they, sort of like merge again someone down the line to pick up a new skill set. But as long as we're treating, Tommy the visual learner, and we're like, you got to do it in book. Got to do it in book. And it's like by 3rd grade, he's struggling. Like, hey, I guess you weren't as smart as you thought you were. When the whole time the academics were trying to deliver him in a way that had you given him video, he'd have been just fine. But now he feels stupid. And now he's, discouraged from trying his actual, gifts.
Yeah, see, I totally relate to that because I feel like even when I was a kid in school, if I was struggling with math or whatever it was, I would always get asked by parents or teachers or whoever, how come you can do this and this so well, but you can't do this? And even as a kid, I'm like, those aren't even close to being the same things. Like, yeah. I can know a song well, I can learn a dance very quickly. I can do physical things and I can do musical things and I can do story things. Second nature, it's nothing. But I can't solve this math problem out of this book that I know nothing about. And they would be like, how come you could do that but not this? And I'm like,
yeah, that's your job. You are the teacher. So they could very easily profile learning types and cater to those learning types to make everybody as smart as their brain and biology could be. But they're brain dead and they treat everybody the same and then make the people who don't fit in line with their little gateway system feel stupid their entire, career. By the time you're in high school, you feel dumb.
Yeah, it's almost like I had a teacher one time when I was a senior in high school. She taught English, I believe. And I had this class right after lunch. And not that it was a difficult subject, but she used to tell us all the time, I give this period a little more grace because you guys are coming right from lunch. You just ate. Now you're tired. You're going to be struggling to stay awake. So I will give you more grace because of what time of day you have my class. So it's almost sort of like...
Absolutely. An acknowledgement of a reality and cater, or else try to teach through it and get mad at you every day for being being tired.
Wake up. Why can't you all wake up? Yeah. Well, we just fed you a huge, heavy lunch, and now you've got to learn something. Yeah.
But if a school was wise, there would be someone who's like, hey, I made an observation here. After lunches, brains don't work as good as in the morning. So let's take every kid and right after lunch put something where having a full stomach, right, is a advantage in that deal. And then they start engineering it so they're like, how dare you be tired when, first period did really well in this test and you guys suck. And I'm like, dude, all it would take was looking over at the data that's at your disposal, making an observation, know where you're going wrong, and structure it better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad I thought of that because that makes so much more sense.
Absolutely. Anything else? Because that was good.
No, this is going to really sort of change the way I see the school system.
I don't hate it. I don't hate children, and I don't hate the school system.
Tommy got just through the ringer today.
There was in that same book, there was this example, and I think our education system that was sort of like created at a different time, the agrarian age, where kids farmed in the summer and our whole behaviors were different. There was a story about like a kid, a mom, and a grandmother. Right? They all baked this loaf of bread the same way, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense that they put the loaf of bread in this certain kind of container, like a cast iron container, and it was really small. And when they created the dough, they would cut 2 inches off of both sides. And I'm killing the story, but you're going to get the gist of it. And so the kid asked, "Mom, why do you cut the ends off of the loaf?" And the mom said, "Well, it's because Grandma did. And I cut it off the loaf, and just because I saw what she did." And so the kid went and asked, "Grandma, why do you cut the ends off of this loaf?" And Grandma said, "Because the oven was only this wide and the dough wouldn't fit in the oven. But because they did it that way for so long, it propagated down, and people start questioning why the hell we do it this way, and they just assume it and do it because the generation before." So if we were all agrarians where we take 3 months off to harvest the corn, and none of the kids do harvesting of corn anymore, so why do we keep doing that? It's because the last generation did. And I'm not saying that's an actual example, but you get the gist of it. How many of the things we do were the inherited stupidity from the generation before?
Like daylight savings time? That destroys us all?
We still do it because we've always done it. But we hope this magical engineer will say, "Hey guys, we don't have to do that anymore. Stop serving the consequence because it doesn't make sense anymore." But those people don't exist. We need more engineers.
Let's make them.